Hi, Celia. We're going to take a look at your emphasis posting here, offer some observation. And so let's just jump right in. So I'd like to kind of take a look at the overview, how you've gone ahead and posted. It looks like everything is here. You've done a wonderful job in kind of organizing it. Very easy for me to kind of overview it. Not everybody did that, believe it or not. So I've gone over in that overview video earlier the kind of reasoning behind the project itself. So in this feedback video, I want to kind of talk a little bit more about your individual imagery, your composition, and perhaps some observations on what I'm seeing just in terms of consistency in your photography that I can see, even if that consistency happens to be this sort of free-form exploration that's going on. So what I am seeing here, it happens to be some leading line. I do see some considerable use of leading lines. Those are the lines that you end up finding, pathways that end up inviting a viewer into a scene. When we use those, it sort of creates this energy that moves a viewer to a very specific point within the composition. We've been studying that with the rhythm composition. We're going to study it more when we get into a very specific project about line. But you were using it before we addressed it. So that tells me that either you're just naturally inclined to kind of incorporate that into your image making, or you've somehow dealt with it before and have that in your tool set. But in this image, you're using actually the phi grid pretty well too, in terms of the spiral. But here we have that sort of pointing arrow going in that direction. Here you have another one pointing in the opposite direction, pulling you around. Here you have yet another one that's obvious, very obvious, pulling you straight back into the composition. Here we have yet another one, albeit much more subtle. You have the directions here. The snow is moving in a very specific direction, and it's being picked up also by these. So it's a little bit more subtle, but you're still using those angles to bring the eye toward the composition. Even something like this, where everything seems to be pointing, you're kind of creating this arrow toward the back of your compositions. Something like this, clearly you're pointing an arrow toward the back of the composition. Something like this, maybe not so much. You got away from it here, cool. And then we got into here, we've got another pathway, but this is pacified as well. So the other part has to do with this close and far away kind of perspective, where you started experimenting a little bit with things that are close up, things that are close up, things that are close up. That's a really interesting sort of way to go about making the photographs. Things that are close versus things that are far. That's going to give you a lot of spatial depth. It's going to give you the sense that your work is somewhat voyeuristic. In other words, that it's being seen in a sort of behind the scenes sort of way. You're seeing something that others may not have access to. Knowing that, you can kind of organize your compositions in a very specific way, knowing that when you employ this kind of thing, that's the vibe you're going for, or at least that's the vibe that people are going to get, and then you can use it to your advantage. Your use of shadow here, even all the way through, is really beautiful. Keep doing that. Shadows are just as important to photography as light is. So I would say just continue to look at shadows in just the same way you look at objects, or the way that light is hitting an object. Look at the way that light is not hitting an object just as much. This is a wonderful, as I see it. This is really getting true to what we're aiming at, where you're not so much considering subject or whether things are totally in focus. We do have a bit of focus, but the focus is very thin on that ice there, right in here. The rest of it sort of falls apart, gets really pretty much soft and out of focus. I think we can still identify what things are, but it sort of relaxes the idea of that. Now, this one is maybe not so much. This one is much more grounded in subject, grounded in what the thing is. Perhaps we don't need all of this information. Perhaps we just need the base information, and mostly we're getting the rhythm and the movement of all of these grasses there. I don't know, but this one is so much more subject-based that it doesn't quite achieve what you're getting here, which is really beautiful and extraordinary, and you basically overcome subject in a image like this. Keep experimenting with this. This is playful. There's a long tradition of photographers making images of themselves, self-portraits, reflections of themselves, shadows. You're not really, doing anything with it. It's just sort of there, and you got a shadow of yourself. You could do probably some pretty creative things with that compositionally, or what is your shadow hitting and how is it being used in the composition and things like that. But just as an idea, just as a sort of playful experiment, I think it's a really sort of good idea to work on that. So these are some of the tendencies that I'm seeing in your composition. You're very precise. I don't see any real, crooked horizons. Most of your compositions you're doing are the buildings are sort of lined up very well. You're getting multiple perspectives here. You got up into the library and you're looking down on things. You got very low here and you're looking up. So clearly you're exploring the whole space. That's all wonderful. So I think that you have a lot of really good things going on here, and I would just suggest, keep doing those things, and don't be afraid to experiment with those out of focus, kind of breaking the idea that subject has to be recognizable. Subject will take care of itself. Photography does that all by itself without you having to try. I know I've said that many times, but it's worth repeating over and over. Subject will take care of itself because photography is very good at rendering subject. It is up to you to impose meaning on the subject through form, and then through what is important to you. So I look forward to more of your photography, and we'll see you in the studio. All right, bye now.